Hello, Blenders, and welcome to episode number 139 of Real Blend, a podcast that has a hunger for human flesh, all of a sudden. My name is Sean O'Connell, the managing director here at ZombieMovieBlend. That's a reference to ZombieMovieBlend, which we're playing later in the game, for people who might think that it's strange that we were hungry for human flesh.
You should have given that no context whatsoever.
Just left it alone?
Yeah.
Just roll right through it. This week, The Trial of the Chicago 7, one of the best films that two of us have seen this year. At least I gotta get our third opinions on it. Kev,
I like the film. Yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay, I forgot whether you were down with it as well too. And then a hashtag if it happens. So, peek behind the curtain. We are recording on Monday. We are theoretically going to be joined by Aaron Sorkin this week on the show, and we're very, very excited. But it hasn't happened yet, and so hopefully by the time you guys are listening to it, we'll be able to throw it to our guest Aaron Sorkin discussing the trial of the Chicago 7. And by we, I mean Kevin McCarthy of Fox 5 in Washington, D.C. Hi, Kev.
Hi, Sean. If we don't have it, what are we putting in that 10-minute window? Are just like breathing sounds?
Probably, yeah.
Or zombie.
We're all going to walk and talk together.
Zombie eating flesh sounds, yeah.
That other voice, obviously, Jake Hamilton of Fox 32 in Chicago. Hi, Jake.
My man, how are you?
And Gabe was going to punch in and say something. Gabe, you had a funny line?
Oh, I was going to say I could give him, 10 minutes of elevator music.
Could do that.
Royalty free.
Yeah. Van Halen? Oh, we can't play any Van Halen stuff. Gosh. We'd have
to charge a lot more for our premium episodes.
Spend a lot of money for that. Housekeeping. If you're watching us on YouTube, hello. Good to see you guys. Kevin, you're wearing that hat. Is it because of October? I've noticed you wear the Shining hat a good deal.
I just grabbed it off of my hat rack. But I mean, I particularly do love this hat. I wear it all the time. So, I mean,
yeah. I thought maybe you were going for a theme. I like it.
Yeah, I'm not that smart, but no, I just grabbed it off my...
If you're listening to us on audio, where you get all of your podcast needs served, head over to YouTube. We have two channels over that way, one for the main show, one for clips. Make sure that you search for Real Blend, give us a follow, a like, a subscribe, and we appreciate your support. Weekly poll. Oh, this is a fun one. So this was suggested by Jake. Will you explain to the people why you suggested this week's weekly poll? Have you forgotten what the weekly poll is already?
Before I explain to you why I picked it, can you just explain to me what it was exactly?
You're gonna like why I'm setting you up for this one. It's scariest 80s slasher
Yes,
villains.
I know why. Well, I've touched on it briefly on the show, but it's actually kind of nice that we're recording today because I'm almost done. I came up with an idea sometime in August. Every October for my show, Good Day Chicago, I always try to do some kind of a fun, scary, I love Halloween, I love scary movies, horror is my favorite genre, I love the month of October. So I always try to do some cool, fun, scary movie story. Last year, I did this big dive into the Shining Hotel. This year, I decided I wanted to do kind of a love letter to the 80s slasher monsters that I grew up watching, the Jasons, the Freddys, the Michaels. So I kind of came up with this idea, and God bless the other three members of this show who have listened to every step of this process.
Oh, wait, hold on. I got to pause you real fast.
Yeah.
Because my phone alerted me recently that I was completely out of storage, and I was going through ways to figure out how to get some of my storage back. And I realized that it was all clips of things that you said over the years. I was like, why do I have so many things stored in here?
Because I record clips of my show, So basically, I spent a month reaching out to these different actors, Robert Englund and Kane Hodder and Nick Castle, who played these iconic movie monsters. Basically, just seeing if they would sit down and talk with me. And that was an emotional process, trying to get some people and not getting others, and people agreeing to do it and then falling through, and me waiting on Zoom and people not showing up. But eventually, what has turned into what was meant to be kind of a 3-4 minute package. I am proud and terrified to admit that I think it's closing out. It's cutting to black at about 23 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
But it's really amazing. Just a deep dive into behind the scenes stories, how they got these roles, what it was like when they had to kill somebody. Some of them liked doing it, others didn't. Some took pride. There's a great competition between all of them as to who's killed the most and who has the most. It's a really fun piece.
Oh, that's cool. Is there a community of them?
Very much
they're
so.
all really close.
There's a fun little back and forth moment where Doug Bradley, who plays Pinhead, he goes, basically Pinhead doesn't really kill that many people, and in fact, Kane Hodder, who plays Jason, he calls me a and then it cuts to Kane Hodder going, yeah, he's a And then it's just like a really fun, and then it cuts back to Doug Bradley going, but I killed a club full of people one time. It's just a really fun kind of community that they have. I'm very proud of the piece. I'm at this point now where, I don't know, you guys have worked on pieces before where you're so close into it, you kind of just start losing sight of like if it's good or not. These days I can't see the forest for the trees, so I'm actually kind of excited to be done with it, to just push it out, let you guys see it, and so that's ultimately why I chose this week's poll, because I'm wrapping up this big epic piece that I've been working on for about 2 months now.
All right, so we gave you 3 options in the weekly poll of the scariest 80s slasher villain. I'm going to let you guys, I gave Jason, Freddy, Michael, and other. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to let you know that Jason, of the 3, came in last. Okay. 14.3%. However, between Freddy and Michael, they are separated by 0.4%.
Wow.
Of the vote. 40.4 and 40.8. So Kevin.
Freddy.
Michael.
Really?
I would have thought Michael.
See, I don't understand.
No, I disagree with the choice, but I feel like Halloween is just a more like prestigious horror film. Like the other two are a little bit like VHS, kind of dirty, grindy. Wait, I wasn't talking about the it doesn't matter.
Legacy of the character.
But people bring in outside factors into their choices.
Freddy haunts your dreams.
Yeah, Freddy would have been my choice.
You can't fall asleep.
Yeah, Freddy's the scariest.
Yeah, I would actually say Michael's the least scary.
Yeah, that was my point. Like, he got off to a really fast start, and I put something on Twitter that was like, it's wrong that he's leading this poll. Yeah. Like, he's not that scary. He's generally pretty slow moving, and he's just really hard to kill.
Yeah, the idea of not being able to fall asleep is one of the most terrifying things I could ever think of. Like that to me, hands down, is the scariest of the 3 for sure.
And that's why in the first nightmare, like as they're doing things to keep themselves awake, like that's where you start to feel the pull of slumber.
Because there's an inescapable, like in theory, you can outrun Jason. In theory, you can outrun Michael. You can't outrun the body's need to sleep.
Exactly.
Yeah. But you mentioned the first. I'm gonna one last plug, and then I'll be done. But you mentioned like the first Freddy, specifically, probably as opposed to the others. In my piece, Robert Englund basically admits that like he doesn't straight up say it, but he says that he doesn't like the direction that Freddy went in terms of like every kill had to be topped off with like a one-liner or a
I
joke.
would agree. Yeah, I would agree with that. Because
he didn't do that in the first 2. It's really not until 3 that he kind of starts punching in with the Clint Eastwood one-liners.
3 is pretty great, though.
Three's you could argue.
Dream Warriors.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. 1, 3, and New Nightmare are the best, and you could argue they're the best because those are the 3 that Wes Craven's involved with.
Have we talked about the kill in part 3 where he turns the girl into the puppet, where her veins come out of her arms and her feet?
We've discussed it. Yeah.
That's such a good kill. That's a really good one. We were almost going to do. Well, now I won't even go down. That's too inside baseball. The others that I saw were Pinhead. Mm-hmm. What other others were there? Gabe, do you remember?
You said 80s, so that was also super limiting.
Is he not Pinhead? Chucky's 80s, right?
I don't know.
Is Chucky 80s?
Chucky 80s?
Because like Candyman was 90s. Candyman was early 90s. Pinhead was late 80s.
Is the first Child's Play 89?
It might be. We'll look into that. While you guys are checking that out, I'm going to throw it to our If It Happens, hashtag If It Happens
88.
interview. Yeah, and there you go. Chucky could have been in there then. With the great Aaron Sorkin, who I would, and I'm saying this before we even get him, I would argue is one of our greatest screenwriters, if not the greatest.
My favorite.
Screenwriter. Yes, Jake's favorite screenwriter. And the director, now writer and director of a phenomenal new film, which we'll talk about later in the show, called The Trial of the Chicago 7. So without further ado, either Aaron Sorkin or 10 minutes of elevator music. This is one of our favorite movies of the year. We all love it. It's blowing us away. We're thrilled that you're able to join us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
It's fantastic. I'm really curious because there are so many jaw-dropping moments during the trial itself that I immediately, once the film was over, wanted to go and read about it to find out if some of the things that you portrayed actually happened. And so I'm curious if there are moments that you almost considered leaving out because they might have to you felt a little bit too movie dramatic.
There were, first of all, everything did happen, and more. There's plenty more that happened that we just couldn't show because a movie can't be 6 months long. every once in a while, there would be something where I'd say it wasn't a matter of it being too dramatic. It was a matter of it feeling like people are going to think I wrote this last week. Like I just ripped it from a newspaper story and put it in there. It was 14 years ago that Steven Spielberg asked me to come over to his house on a Saturday morning. And just to be clear, I don't hang out with Steven Spielberg.
That's a great name drop, though. That's a really good one.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I've heard the clank from here. And he said, I want you to write a movie about the Chicago 7. And I said, that's a great idea. That'll be a great movie. And as soon as I left his house, I had to call my father and ask him who the Chicago 7 were. I was just saying yes to doing a movie with Spielberg the way anyone would. But as time went on, and the movie kind of kept getting kicked to next year and kicked to next year and kicked to next year, and then there was a period where it didn't seem like it would get made at all. In the last few years, with Trump, the world started changing to mirror the script. I've been asked if I changed the script at all to mirror events in the world, and I didn't. Not a word. It's the world that changed to mirror the script. We thought the film was plenty relevant last winter when we were making it. We didn't need it to get more relevant, but it did.
It really did.
Yeah. Mr. Sorkin, Jake Hamilton here talking to you from Chicago. You said something interesting which sets up my next question perfectly. You said movies can't be 6 months long. Obviously, you have developed stories for both film and television. The benefit of television is that you have multiple episodes and multiple seasons over years to be able to flesh out a story. If you had been able to tell this story over multiple episodes and multiple seasons like you have in the past with The Newsroom and Studio 60 and obviously The West Wing, what are some aspects of this story that you would have loved to maybe have the chance to maybe dive into a little bit deeper than you did within the constraints of just 2 hours?
Yeah, that's a great question. I thought you were going to say, you said that movies can't be 6 months long, though you've tried.
I'd sit down for a 6 month long Aaron Sorkin film.
Oh, that's nice. He certainly could include more of the very colorful witnesses that took the stand. Like Allen Ginsberg got up there and started reciting some of his poems. Arlo Guthrie wanted to sing all of Alice's Restaurant from the stand. So there was more circus in the courtroom. But the thing I would have included, which I'm sort of sorry that I ended up not including now, was this. Kunstler, the lead defense lawyer, played by Mark Rylance, he became undone by this trial. He was a fairly famous civil rights lawyer at the time who became more famous as a result of this trial, kind of like he was like Johnny Cochran before the OJ trial. Mm-hmm. And courtrooms were his church. And the law was his religion. He just knew that this is a place where justice happens and fairness happens. And to see it all go off the rails, he started drinking. He started getting high at night. He became unspooled. Wow. And there just wasn't enough room in the story to show that. But if I could do it again, or if I could do it as a series, as you said, I'd include that because I think it's a nice reflection of the way so many of us in the last few years have kind of become undone because we're seeing the institutions of democracy kind of aren't on autopilot, that it really depends. It's very user sensitive. And so we're all a little bit dazed and lost. And I thought including that Kunstler story of how he was dazed and lost would have been nice.
Mr. Sorkin, this is Kevin McCarthy. Thank you again for being on our podcast. This is such a pleasure to have you on. I've been watching your work be directed by some of the greatest filmmakers of all time for years. Rob Reiner, obviously David Fincher doing Social Network, Danny Boyle's brilliant work on Steve Jobs, Miller's work on Moneyball. And I wonder, as you were watching these films become the movies they were based on your screenplays, what elements of those directors and the way they approached your material changed the way how you become the filmmaker you are today? I mean, are there things you can pinpoint from specific films or directors that you go, all right, that director really approached my material this way, and that influenced the director that I became on this film and Molly's Game?
Yeah, I would say, and also added to the list of directors, you named Mike Nichols. And Tommy Schlamme in television as the principal director of The West Wing. You would have to really not be paying attention to stand next to these guys for as long as I was able to stand next to them and not pick up anything. So I try to I try to steal as much from them as I can. I've watched the way they work, and I either think, well, that's a shoe I could fit into, or that's not how I would want to work. Mostly, what I try to pay attention to is stuff that speaks to my blind spot, a literal blind spot, which is that I have a very weak visual sensibility. I've spent my life paying attention to how movies, television shows, and plays sound, and not as much attention to how they look. But I'm told that the visual element in cinema is important to some people. So I'm trying to get better at that.
Was there something specifically from Fincher, like on Social Network specifically, that you learned?
Yes, but in the way a freshman would pick up a little something from a guy who's teaching a PhD course in something. Like you could sit in the class and maybe you could pick up a couple of things, but there's so much you have to learn before you can understand what he's talking about. With David, I'm talking about specifically the care he puts into creating a frame. I've seen him spend hours on an exterior shot trying to get just a little spill of light from a street lamp that's 2 blocks away. And I would think to myself at the time, boy, I don't know if this really makes that much difference, this spill of light. And then I'll look at a shot of mine that really could have used a spill of light from a street lamp. So I'm learning the hard way, but I'm learning.
Mr. Sorkin, we'll get you out of here on this one, although I'm torn before I go into this now, because I would almost kill for a director's commentary of yours, but I also don't want you talking over your dialogue.
That's very nice of you.
Listen, as the parent of 2 boys, I totally understand that you will never be able to choose your favorites from anybody, but I want to ask you something about your deep roster of talent on this ensemble, to the point where every single time I try and think of the performances, I miss out on 2 or 3 people who gave spectacular performances. As soon as I was finished watching this film, I immediately wanted to go back and rewatch it to just appreciate the effort that went into it and the work that went into it. So on a repeat viewing, I would love for you to just tell me who you want people to be paying attention to outside of Eddie and Sacha and Yahya, who give really standout performances, a performer who you think is the glue that holds a lot of this together.
Okay, well, listen, I have the same problem as you do. Everywhere you turn, it's a great performance. When I'd come to work in the morning, I felt like I was getting tossed the keys to a Formula One race car. And all I had to do was not put the car in the wall, and these guys were going to win the race. But the people you named, for sure, Jeremy Strong, I think Mark Rylance is giving a fantastic performance, but the guy who I think really deserves, well, they're all getting credit. a guy who deserves the credit that he's getting, Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah.
As this prosecutor who's plainly ambivalent, but he's got a job to do. I think Joe is great in every scene he does, and it's a very important character. It's a very important element of the film. I think that he is the character probably most representative of how the audience is feeling.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Mr. Sorkin, again, we can't thank you enough for joining our show. We love
My
the movie.
pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, the three of you.
We have to thank Netflix for giving us time with Aaron Sorkin on behalf of the trial of the Chicago 7. As we mentioned, we will talk about that later in the show. Okay, let's get to talking points, and we're going to start with the latest trailer that dropped for the limited series, The Stand. We're all on record as being huge fans of Stephen King. This is going to be a CBS All-Access show that's actually coming out later this year. It's going to drop on December 17th. They had a teaser trailer that dropped earlier. This is the full-length trailer. I'm going to go on record as just saying I'm not impressed. I am not. It's a very daunting show or story to take on. And it just looks, I hate to condemn it this way, but it just looks like a TV show.
Looks like network TV.
Can I just be like really simplistic here?
Sure.
See, even Daenerys is totally with me on that. No. Here's the thing. Gabe sent a link for The Stand. I thought we'd already seen this series 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Like the first thing I looked
kind of
at.
have.
I know. And I remember being a kid and seeing The Stand series on television. Like, I mean, I want to say it was ABC or something, wherever they didn't they air a mini series on The Stand?
Yes.
Yeah. And I remember it being scary. I just feel like, do you guys feel like we're at a point now where you see Stephen King's name pop up on a thing and you go, does he really have any involvement in this whatsoever besides the source material?
And he tends not to. He really tends to just, if someone wants to take on his stories, he lets them do what he wants to do, but that leads to like that awful Dark Tower movie that we saw.
So my point is, like, when I see Stephen King's name on advertisements now, it doesn't really have that much weight to it anymore in a weird, in a strange way. And I'm not saying that actually has nothing to do with Stephen King, because the source material is obviously amazing.
Sure.
I feel like we're in like Star Wars territory here, where you're just milking every bit of like material that we can deal with, where you get a little fatigued. And so when I saw The Stand link from Gabe just now, I said, another one? I had absolutely no idea there was another one in the works. I was just completely...
Remember, for a long time, Ben Affleck was considered.
He was directed. Remember,
Kevin, you were with me. Do you remember when Warner Brothers did this really cool thing when they were pushing Argo hard, like to be like an Oscar favorite, and they set up a breakfast with Ben Affleck, myself, Kevin, and a few other people, and Ben Affleck would just like come and like sit with you and give you like one-on-one time. And Kevin, I believe he sat with you and me because naturally you and I can't be separated. And I brought up, like, at the time he was like deep into like about to get ready for The Stand. Like, it was amazing. So I think part of the reason why it feels like we haven't been removed from The Stand is because they've been talking about doing it for so long. And this just doesn't feel like, I mean, I hate to be a shill for this company, but like part of me is just like, God, like HBO couldn't have snatched this up. Like, it would have been a great HBO. Like, this just feels like the exact same miniseries we got 30 years ago, just with better cameras and better technology. It feels network TV. Like, I really wish like an HBO would have snatched it up and made a miniseries out of it.
I didn't read the Stand book, but what was up with the smiley face blinking? Is that in the book?
No, I
don't remember that.
I read the book a long time ago, but that
gave me Watchmen vibes.
Yeah,
like
the
just
smiley
seeing
face
the circle and the yellow, it just gave me
Yeah.
Watchmen
The winky
vibes.
And also, like,
is
I
weird.
don't know. I like Alex Skarsgård, but like, he's not who I would have pictured for Randall Flagg. Like, Randall Flagg is like one of the all-time. I mean, he is the Thanos of the Stephen King universe, you know. And like, I'm just not sure. Like, I was really excited for. And also, I don't think Matthew McConaughey pulled it off. Like, I'm not sure who I would pick, but it's not them.
Also, and this sounds insulting, but like when you see a certain cast and they put it together and you're like, oh, damn, they got all those people. Like, you get surprised that movie stars show up in certain things. But when I see Heather Graham and James Marsden, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, they got them for a TV movie. And I don't mean that in an insulting way. It just, it reaches a certain level. Kevin, I know what you're saying about Stephen King and their adaptations, but like if Mike Flanagan gets his hands on a Dr. Sleep,
that's different.
There's quality material to be made there. It's usually just the filmmakers they choose to approach it.
But ironically, that's also an aspect of where like he changed the source material. Like, he made it better. Like the movies, Dr. Sleep is better than the book, Dr. Sleep.
I guess my point is at the beginning of the Stand trailer, like you can tell like there's a pridefulness about going from the books of Stephen King. And I'm just like, I don't know what that means anymore to me. Like in the sense of there's just, and I get it, I love Stephen King, but seeing that name attached to multiple projects over the years, and a lot of them not being good, we've seen a lot of bad Stephen King adaptations. I don't know. There's something about that name that used to have more weight to it to me.
He's kind of like the Woody Allen of horror movies. Like he puts out a new thing every year. And
he doesn't. No, he doesn't.
And it's not King's fault.
Stephen King puts out a book a year.
True.
A book a year, sure.
That's a lot.
Revival was unbelievable.
Revival was like 8 years ago, dude.
Was it really that long ago?
Yeah.
I just read it this year. That's all that counts.
And my criticism is not towards King really at all. It's actually, this is not King's fault whatsoever.
He's not coming on the show.
But it's a purely marketing
James Patterson, though, who lends his name to, like, you see James Patterson is the huge
James
name
Patterson
on the book.
Does the junkets for but also James Patterson writes the same book over and over.
And then but underneath it says like and so and it turns out that like the and so actually wrote most of the book, and James Patterson just lent his name to it. Kind of thing.
James Patterson's like, I tell you what, you write it, I'll sell it.
Essentially.
I have a random question. So years ago when Shawshank came out, I think one of the coolest things I learned from that film was learning Stephen King wrote a short story for that. I did not know that. So I guess my point was when Shawshank was coming out, were they marketing it as a Stephen King story?
No, I don't.
Did they market into that at all? Because I don't remember that being part of the marketing.
Yeah, no, I think they did because they made it. I mean, his movies were huge in the '80s too, like Cujo and Firestarter and all those. Like his name was a name even way back then.
I know, but I'm saying, but Shawshank. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, speaking of Shawshank and that, if you're ever looking for a Stephen King book to read, read On Writing, which is one of the best things, and there's a great story. I want to say it's from this book, but there's a great story he tells where a woman approached him at a grocery store, and she said something along the lines of like, I know who you are, and I don't really enjoy your writing that much. He goes, okay, well, I'm sorry. And she goes, well, why don't you write something like that Shawshank Redemption? Like that's something. And he goes, ma'am, like I did write Shawshank Redemption.
That.
And granted, I could be like screwing up the story. And basically, she didn't believe him and walked away. And I want to say it's in On Writing. But if you're a Stephen King fan or just a fan of a creative person's process, On Writing is a freaking masterful book.
But like when you saw the trailer for Green Mile and saw King's name on it, that had meant something. It meant something.
I don't even think that trailer. I think that trailer said. I think it said from the author and of the Shawshank Redemption.
All right, let's get on to the announcement over the weekend that they're going to be redoing Cleopatra, which doesn't necessarily move my needle until you tell me that it's going to be directed by Patty Jenkins and starring Gal Gadot. I'm pretty thrilled that these two are figuring out ways to continue to work together. I'd like to see Patty get away from the Wonder Woman franchise and try different things as well, too. And we're going to see Gal eventually in Death on the Nile, if and when that ever plays in theaters. So what are your guys' thoughts on the idea of them bringing back Cleopatra, learning from the lessons of the debacle that was the first time they tried to make it, where they went way over budget and their eyes were too big for their stomachs? Is that the phrase that I'm trying to think of?
Yeah, I'm looking at this now. So the original Cleopatra was 1963. It was 3 hours and 12 minutes.
That's extensive.
Elizabeth Taylor.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, Sean, you hit the nail on the head with exactly what would grab me to this movie. The only thing would be Patty Jenkins. Really, to be honest with you. I love Gal Gadot, but again, I fall into that camp of what about something new? What about something interesting? What about 100%. Something writing an original screenplay? But if Patty Jenkins seems somehow interested in this source material, I have to imagine that she's going to do something cool with it. I mean, Patty Jenkins is one of our best filmmakers working today. I mean, Wonder Woman, as we all know, was great. And Monster, and she's done some great films. So I have to imagine that when you're Patty Jenkins and you have the right to go on to, not right, but you have the ability to choose whatever you want to do. I mean, think about it. You're like, I mean, you're essentially at a Nolan level where you can go, all right, Wonder Woman made all this money. I can probably choose my next project without a lot of blowback from the studios.
Sure.
So I would imagine that Cleopatra meant something to her. So it's that motivation that makes me interested. That's what makes me interested. Because I don't think anybody's clamoring for a Cleopatra remake, or like, I don't think anybody's going like, "Can I have a Cleopatra remake?" You know what I mean?
No, I don't think so.
Sure,
Yeah.
but you talk about like doing something new. I also feel like to a certain degree, I mean, like Cleopatra in 1963 Hollywood, that was a very specific type of blockbuster that came out around that time.
It was a studio picture.
Yeah. And I feel like, and I think this is a different scenario than whenever I was bitching about Rebecca a few weeks ago, because like I haven't seen Sean. I know you've seen it. Like I don't. To me, the trailer of the old school Rebecca and the new Rebecca didn't look different enough to justify its existence. I feel like there are a lot of different directions
100%
that 50 years, 60 years could birth with Patty Jenkins' new Cleopatra. I think there's a lot of interesting things, and we haven't really gotten a great sword and sandal epic in what, 20 years since Gladiator. So yes, like yeah, it is a little bit of like, oh, we've gotten that before, but like our generation doesn't have a Cleopatra, and honestly, like if I wanted to sort of see a Cleopatra movie, I don't know if I would turn on the 1963 3.5 hour version. Like, I'd like to see a little bit more of an edgy modern one.
How would you feel about a Spartacus remake? Someone remaking Kubrick's film.
It depends who it is.
But I mean, so Spartacus. Okay, so here's why I asked that question. Spartacus is probably is more of an accepted critically film, right? You would say Spartacus was probably a film that most people liked. Cleopatra, as you mentioned, had some issues. So I guess is it because the film didn't have as many issues? Like Spartacus being remade from Kubrick, would that spark the similar conversation we're having now, Jake? Would you be interested in it, or would you be kind of like, eh?
I feel like we kind of hit this scenario a few years ago when Ridley Scott. I can't even think of what. God, it's horrible. I can't think of the name. He basically remade Kings. Yeah, he basically remade like 10 Commandments, right?
That was not a good movie.
It was not a good movie. So I mean, I'm all for someone giving a new shot at things. But we got an example of exactly what it is I'm talking about, which is a new director trying something different. And me still going, I'd rather just watch 10 Commandments.
Yeah. Right, and so it's interesting to me. I've actually been watching a lot of older films recently.
I love that you're doing that.
And I've been watching a lot of, like, Jake brings up an interesting point about studio pictures. And I've been watching a lot of old school 20th Century Fox studio pictures. Like I watched Towering Inferno, then the other day I watched The Poseidon Adventure. These were movies that were studio machines.
Yeah.
Like they were cranking these types of films out. You're right. And like Jake, I don't know if Cleopatra was in that. It must have been in the same time period where actors were under contracts with studios, and you would make like, I don't know. Remember Hail Caesar was kind of all about that, like the picture deals and things like that. Cleopatra does kind of remind me of like that old school Hollywood system. But Patty's involvement. Now, knowing Patty Jenkins, again, not to get super nerdy, but she's going to shoot on film and it's going to look old school. She's probably going to bring that realm to it. So, I mean, I'm in because of her. And it's so funny because we were talking about this the other day. We were all talking about the Mank trailer that came out, which looks. I mean, did you guys see the cool little Netflix old school logo they made?
Everything about that trailer. If that trailer is a microcosm of what that movie's going to be, that means Sean, you nailed it in January. You called it in January, dude.
I kind of like that idea of exploring the making of Trumbo was like the making of, like there was an element of making of Spartacus in there.
I even liked it. Do you remember Hitchcock a few years ago? I really liked it with Hopkins played Hitchcock and Helen Mirren played his wife. I actually really enjoyed that.
Anyone of note?
It was Taylor Hackford.
Was it really? Oh, okay.
Was it
Helen Mirren's husband?
Wasn't it Helen Mirren's husband who directed it?
Might have been. Yeah.
The only reason why I remember the Hitchcock movie so well is because Jake and I were in New York doing that junket, and Hopkins didn't make it, right? Didn't Hopkins
we talked to him via satellite?
Yeah, and but Hitchcock is like that great movie about the making of film. So I'm almost just interested in the making of Cleopatra. Versus
that'd be a great movie, and just about all the like drama that went into going over budget and.
Yeah, someone actually needs to make a movie about the making of Jaws. I know there's documentaries about it, but like I'm so fascinated now by what Fincher, like, because like what the beauty of Mank and Fincher, what Fincher's doing with Mank, is I think it's gonna give everybody a deeper exploration of what that film meant to one of our greatest filmmakers of all time. Yeah, I mean our generation, Fincher, and I think what's interesting about I love that concept of one of our best filmmakers ever researching and diving deeper into one of the greatest other filmmakers. Could you imagine Tarantino messing with like some old Howard Hawks films or like, I just think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was basically that.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah.
And cast Charles Dance as William Randolph Hearst. Like that's.
I did a little bit of research
amazing.
on because I wasn't super familiar with outside of like it's about the making of Orson or of Citizen Kane. I didn't really understand what the story of Make was going to be. It sounds a little bit like, and I mean this is a compliment because I think it's really intriguing. It's like a 1940s Social Network.
It is a little bit because they're fighting over writing
two
credits.
guys who actually who both claim to have written Citizen Kane, which I think is brilliant. That's how I pitched it on my morning show the other day. It's, if you're looking at this thinking like, oh, this doesn't seem like a David Fincher, but it's like the first Social Network of its time.
I'm very excited. I mean, it looks incredible. And, again, go back to the film discussion. We know Fincher shoots digitally, but that looks like old school film.
Yeah.
Because Fincher is one of the masters. Did you guys notice this? I mean, I think we discussed this in the show before. We talked about his DP. The guy who DP'd this movie is his first feature. This is his first feature film.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
And he did I want to say he did 2 episodes of television that Fincher was involved in. Did he do
Mindhunter?
Mindhunter and House of Cards, maybe?
Yeah,
maybe one of those.
Fincher shows.
But either way, I find that to be a ballsy move on Fincher's part. Like to bring in but again, Fincher obviously has a shorthand with this guy. I'm just surprised he didn't use Cronenworth, the guy who shot like Fight Club and Social Network. But I'm so interested. Now, wait, stupid question: did he shoot black and white or did he convert black and white?
I don't know.
You mean like did he plan on it being black and white? I bet
he did. Film in black and white?
I bet. Because directors who make black and white movies, like Spielberg talked about, like with Schindler's List, like you just film it differently. You take more
right.
You take like light to account
differently.
more often. Yeah. And I guarantee.
But isn't there film stock that's black and white? Can't you shoot black and white film?
Did he shoot film or did he shoot digitally?
He shot digitally. So in
Fincher's, I was gonna say I don't see him shooting film with the way he shoots.
Wait, but do you think he? I guess my point is, do you think he captured the film in black or the movie in black and white?
So here's what I'm sure happened. Okay. You can, when you're shooting on digital, you can upload what is called a LUT, which is like, it's called a lookup table. Basically, it gives you what your general look of the film is going to be on the day. So I'm sure either using the LUT or using some sort of other setting, you can set the output to be in black and white, and you can kind of sort of give it a broader color grade, if you will.
Okay.
So I'm almost certain that he shot digitally, of course, because it's Fincher and he needs.
He 100% shot digitally. Yeah. I know that.
And then I'm sure on the day what they were looking at and what they were seeing was in black and white. Yeah. And it's still all the color information is there, but it's in black and white. Just because black and white, I don't know if anyone focuses on that as much, but like when you convert something to black and white, things that in color might look very different and separated, their gray values can be very close.
Right.
So like the colors might pop, and then you have this great separation between.
It changes your depth of field. Yeah.
It changes a lot. Yeah. So you do have to be conscious of it. But I'm almost certain they have the color information. They just.
We should get him on this show to discuss
that would be great.
Topics such as this.
But you bring up a good point about lighting, and I don't want to get too derailed on this, but I think it's an interesting subject only because you do, like Jake, we have this discussion all the time on the show about like Mad Max and films like The Mist where they release a black and white version, and Jake always says, well, if you're going to release a black and white version, just have done it in black and white to begin with. So I guess my point would be, I would imagine on set, Fincher must have had visuals of what there's no way the actors didn't know that they were black and white when they were shooting those days. I mean, I would imagine the playback had to be black and white.
Yeah, sure. With a film like that, you have every department has to be informed, all the way down to costume design and set design.
All
that's
of
going
it.
To look like.
Yeah, I think how instantaneous you can do it. You can essentially look at it in the moment.
But it's not as simple as just changing it to black and white. Was what Gabe was saying. Like there's something
like my Instagram photos. I love black and white on
sometimes.
Instagram filter.
I mean, you get more detailed with it, but it is kind of as simple as just
add a little grain,
changing it to black and white.
Yeah,
adding a little red
filter. Black and white. I love it.
What's Fincher's last movie shot on film? Probably.
I mean, it's been like 6
Benjamin
years
Button.
Since
Benjamin Button might be his last one. Yeah.
Makes sense. All right, my turn to brag for a little bit. News that broke since the last time we recorded.
You called it, man.
I mean, I'm so in on this story. Benedict Cumberbatch has been added to the cast of Spider-Man 3. He'll be playing Doctor Strange. I suggested a while back that this was because they're going to introduce the multiverse. And they are eventually going to build to the point where you're going to see Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield on screen with Tom Holland. I am now 100% guaranteeing the fact that this is going to happen. I mean, it's just all these things are falling into place. They would only fall into place for this reason. If Marvel doesn't make this happen, then they're completely dropping the ball. The question is going to be like, how big is his role going to be? Like Doctor Strange was in Thor Ragnarok, but he was in for like 2 scenes. You know,
I forgot he was in Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, he just shows up and sort of sends him along on his way.
Yeah.
And, in Spider-Man, he's back in New York City. Doctor Strange is a New York City character. There's a word that got dropped that is starting to annoy the Spider-Man community to the point where Peter Ramsey, who's one of the co-directors, the 3 co-directors of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, he actually commented on it as well, too. They referred to Doctor Strange as Spider-Man's new mentor.
I wanted to ask you about that, how you felt about that.
I'm with the people who kind of feel like it's ridiculous. Like,
wait, isn't Doctor Strange being a mentor to Spider-Man really no different than Stark?
But that's the thing. So the people who complain about Tom Holland in the MCU, and it's a nitpick, it's a small thing, but they critique him for being Iron Man Jr., essentially. That he spends most of Homecoming in a Stark enhanced suit. That he, needs to rely on Tony multiple times.
There hasn't really been a solo Spider-Man movie.
But I've actually, Far From Home was enough of a solo.
No, because I mean,
Nick
both
Fury.
Both Nick Fury and then Mysterio were kind of like.
Well, but I guess the idea would be that Spidey's a kid. I don't mean to step on you, Sean, but Spidey's a kid. And I think it's so funny because like the perception you're referring to, I noticed that, but I always felt like Spider-Man's heart was the biggest out of anyone's heart out of all the MCU characters, right?
Sure.
And I think that's what he had. That's his superpower, in my opinion, other than his normal like Spidey senses and things like that.
Sure.
At the end of the day, he's still a kid. Right, so he's fighting with adults.
For sure.
So I don't. Does that bother you as a Spider-Man fan?
Well, that was a huge draw of what made him intriguing as a character in the comics was that he is super young and he makes a lot of mistakes that kids make.
Yeah.
And he almost has to clear them up, sort of thing. I was totally fine with them using Tony to bring him into the MCU, and I understood at the very least, that was their intro to bringing him in, and that him losing Tony was significant. But I really thought that by the end of Far From Home, they'd got him to the point where he was ready to just now carry films on his own. I also still love the team up aspect. So if it's cool that Doctor Strange pops up for a scene or two, I think that's great. But I don't want him to be like, I'm your new mentor. I'm the guy who's guiding you along. Some people have said maybe it's possible that he goes to Doctor Strange to help him with the fact that his identity is now out. Like that got revealed at the end of Far From Home. So I think it's cool that Marvel has this sandbox of characters they can play with and they can pick and choose who's going to drop into certain things. And truthfully, almost all of the Marvel films of late have had some type of crossover. Like Nick Fury becomes a significant part of the Captain Marvel origin story. And, I'm trying to think of some other examples. Like the fact that Thor was probably going to show up in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Like they have them all here now, so they're going to start working them together. I just was also ready for a full-on solo Spider-Man movie where he got to be his own character. So I'm torn. I'm fascinated to see how they're going to use Benedict Cumberbatch. If they have him there so that he can introduce the multiverse even further and we get closer to this theory about the Sinister Six joining together and Jamie Foxx playing Electro. And
is Watts doing 3?
Yes, John Watts is doing 3. They're going to start filming it very soon. Yes, they're going to start filming it in Atlanta, I believe, next month.
So this is senior year.
Yeah, I asked Feige about that, if they're still maintaining that pattern.
10, 11, 12, yeah.
And he said he didn't see any reason why not, but the blip was a big thing. Like, the blip was...
Oh.
Yeah, what do you think it's going to be called? They said Home's going to be in the title again.
I saw someone say Homesick. I kind of like that
It'll
one.
be Spider-Man and Sherlock Holmes.
You could do that, I guess, if you want.
Okay.
Now that,
not bad.
Gabe,
That's not bad.
that's actually not bad, my friend.
He's not
That's
Doctor Strange at
actually
all.
not bad.
Benedict Cumberbatch cast as
He's Sherlock.
Holmes.
All right, I get it.
And then they bring in Downey as that'd be amazing.
Oh my god,
It's a multiverse.
of Sherlock.
And they can get Superman now.
The Sherlock verse.
Cavill.
Oh my gosh.
The Holmes verse.
It's kind of mind-blowing.
Wow.
It's still on track for next December.
We
Sony
are
has
so
not
in
moved
desperate need of movies.
and they're not gonna. Yeah, no, I know. But they're still shooting, and theoretically they're coming out. So we'll see.
I saw something about them shooting in New York, and we have a Real Blend listener who posted something on the Facebook page about posts around his neighborhood. And he said that, like, that whatever the filming name was, like, that was code name for Spider-Man 3, and he said that they were going to be filming around his neighborhood.
It was another Seinfeld reference. All the 2 Spider-Man films up to this point have been nicknamed after Seinfeld. The Homecoming
and this
was
one's Serenity Now, isn't it?
Yeah, this one's Serenity Now. The first one was Summer of George.
Yeah.
And I forget what Far From Home was called, but they've all been Seinfeld references.
That's awesome.
I think John Watts is just a really big Seinfeld fan.
That's huge.
So
Who's
that's
not?
pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, then they're going down to Atlanta to shoot the bulk of it. So so we'll see. But I would assume we're going to start hearing some more casting news as that comes together.
I don't think. Oh, sorry.
No, all I was going to say was regarding the Cumberbatch news.
Yes.
So what exactly has been said that he is going to be in it? But you're the assumption would be, like, you've heard rumors that he might be like a father figure kind of walking him through. But what exactly has been confirmed? These are guesses at this point, but what's been confirmed?
Yeah, just that he's in it. He's playing Doctor Strange, and they've called him a mentor. But is
the mentor official from the studio?
Not from the studio. No, the studio hasn't confirmed anything. This is just in Hollywood Reporter.
Wow.
Yeah, just in Hollywood Reporter. But I assume we're going to get a rundown, because I don't even know, honestly. Jamie Foxx is going to be in it, and he's playing Electro, but they haven't confirmed whether he's truly Electro from the Andrew Garfield movies or whether he's just Electro. I know that that's something that's been speculation. I also bluntly straight up asked my Sony rep, like, is Electro the villain? And I was told, like, we don't really know. We don't know. She said Kevin Feige's driving the ship, and Feige lets news come out as he wants it to come out, and so sooner or later it'll get revealed.
They're saying Holland could get nominated for an Oscar for Cherry.
That'd be amazing.
I mean, that's directly from, like, the Russos. They've been saying how good he is. I know they directed it, but I mean, listen. At the end of the day, I mean, Tom Holland could be an Oscar nominee by the end of, by next year.
That's fantastic. I can't wait to see Cherry. I can get behind that for sure.
I can't wait.
Briefly, David O. Russell's next film. So I'm excited by any new David O. Russell film.
Same.
This one will star Christian Bale, who he's worked with a number of times now. Margot Robbie, who's fantastic. John David Washington, who's absolutely carving out his niche. And it's going to be shot by Chivo. And as Gabe points out, that's all we know. And that's basically all we need to know at this point. I'm 100% sold. Jake, you're saying you kind of hate David O. Russell, though?
No, I didn't say Jesus Christ. I'm just like, I like David O. Russell's movies, some more than others. Really love Three Kings, really love The Fighter. I kind of thought Silver Linings Playbook was a little bit overrated, and American Hustle, if I'm being honest, did absolutely nothing for me. So, like, it was interesting, like, before the show popped up, Gabe said something about David O. Russell, and to watch all three of you perk up so quickly, and then I sort of went like, oh, like, David, like sure, like when it comes out, like, but I'm far more interested in it from the cast than I am the fact that it's a David O. Russell movie.
Joy is the only one that I could say, like, Joy didn't work.
Yeah, Joy.
I don't even know if they knew what that story was. But yeah, I'm with you, Kevin. I love Silver Linings Playbook. I think it's phenomenal.
But I didn't love Hustle. Hustle was a little off to me. I'm with Jake on that one.
It felt a little like unfinished. Like he had a big chunk of the idea, but didn't necessarily know where it was going to go, and just had that great cast and figured he'd lean on him. I'm
also appreciative of O. Russell just from a standpoint that he shoots on film. He always shoots on film, which is cool too. So, and I think what it'll be cool is, like, he'll bring Lubeski back to shooting on film, because Revenant was digital, and I love Lubeski's digital work, but I just think that everything Lubeski's done on film, including Children of Men,
gorgeous.
I love The Revenant. Great film.
It's
visually
gorgeous.
It works digitally because of the whatever's. I find that film. It's good. I don't love that movie like you do.
Oh, that was my number one that year.
Gabe, we don't know any story point on this. None whatsoever.
Yeah, what I was reading today, that's pretty much all. Apparently, they're keeping the story and the plot.
That's interesting.
Close to the chest. Yeah.
All right. This week in movies, I don't think that there's a lot here that we can talk about. No one's seen An Honest Thief, Liam Neeson, Jai Courtney.
Did the junket.
Jake and I both. What's so funny?
Did you watch it?
Well, I'll tell you a story.
I said I did the junket.
So Jake and I were interviewing Liam Neeson for that, and we both didn't have time to watch the movie. And I remember, like, texting Jake that day, because, I mean, like, sometimes these screeners don't come in till late. We have 15 junkets on one day. I mean, I don't even remember what day this was, but I remember texting Jake. I'm like, dude, did you watch the movie? He goes, I watched enough to know my questions or whatever it was. Like, watch the first, so I put the first 5 minutes on and I got everything I needed. I mean, again,
you could watch the trailer and it gives you.
When we go back to junkets, we're going to get to a point where we watch 10 minutes of the movie.
I know.
Walk out. Is there a shuttle?
I mean, here's the
back
thing.
to the hotel?
Like, I've been getting like PR emails of like when I get a junket invite and they're like, hey, have you watched all 10 episodes of this show yet? I'm like, who has time to watch all of these? And again,
I've never got. Now I've heard people in hospitality suites say, "Oh, I watched all 10," and I just like my thought is like, that's a day's work. Like that's like if they're hour-long episodes, that's more than a day's work.
You know what show we're watching right now? And it's these perfect 30-minute episodes, and it's endearing as hell. Ted Lasso on Apple TV.
I've heard that it's fantastic. I did that junket.
Lasso is hilarious.
Yeah,
It's great.
You know, I'm watching this. You know, it's so funny because I feel like we keep reducing down what we want from like over the last 6 months we've been like, oh god, these 90-minute movies are great. And there were days when Lost was 24 episode seasons, and now we're like, oh, 8 episode seasons are great. I'm now watching M. Night Shyamalan's Apple series, Servant.
Oh, okay.
Which is a great, and they're 30-minute episodes, and they're great.
You know
30 minutes apiece, and
Quibi was just too early. Like, come back with Quibi in a year, and I'll be like, ooh, 6 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Did you watch any more of Bly Manor, or did you start Bly Manor, Sean?
I haven't started it. No,
I really want your thought, just because you were such a big fan of Hill House. I really want.
I am 100%. But we're into so many other things currently right now, and I just want to finish them. I need some closure before I start another thing.
I am watching Hill House with Amanda because Amanda's never seen it, and I'm just reminded of how good it is and was, and how much better. Like last night we watched the Bent Neck Lady episode, and
Hill House is a masterpiece.
It's so much better than Bly Manor.
Yeah, I was just going to mention the plan is before the end of October we'll do a segment on Bly since
cool.
Oh, shoot,
I think we're all
better
big
get going.
I do want to mention only because the show just
as far as
ended, and Gabe, you saw this. I know this is not in our notes today, but we both finished The Boys. It was amazing.
It was awesome.
I won't say any details because I want to watch
it. No details.
No details, but if you're a fan of the first season, I'll say this real quick. I don't think season 2 is as good as season 1, even though I do like season 2 a lot. But the last 2 episodes of season 2 are some of the most batshit insane things. It almost got to a point where like you know, we see so much content and so much crazy things in movies. Yeah. And you start thinking to yourself, how do they keep coming up with ways to kill people in shows that are different and crazy? This show takes it to such, I mean, the practical blood on that show must be half their budget. It has to be. Yeah. I mean, it has to be half their budget. I mean, I cannot remember the whale scene in the first a couple episodes of season 2.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So I won't give any details, but my brief 2-sentence review of season 2 is, I don't think it hits the way season 1 did because season 1 was introducing us to the crazy. Yeah. But I think season 2 does a great job of building on season 1 in that the characters are all very familiar to us. Each of them grow a little bit, and seeing them interact now is more fun than it ever was in season 1. And like you're saying, with the last couple episodes, it still hits the highs of being crazy as fuck.
And to Gabe's point, though,
I liked it a lot.
Gabe brings up a really interesting point about why that show works so well. It's the characters. You are so involved with the show's characters. You care about the relationships. Frenchie, a character that could easily be a thrown away character, is so deep. There's so much going on. And even Chase Cusack's performance this season as Deep is just outstanding. I mean, the whole Scientology thing.
Chase Crawford.
Chase Cusack's my buddy.
Chase Cusack
to the show, and he's going to hear this and love this moment.
You know what's funny about that? Chase Cusack is the last person I sat next to in a movie theater before everything happened. Gabe,
because we all saw A Quiet Place together.
Jake, Chase, and his lovely girlfriend. We went and saw Quiet Place Part 2. But Chase Cusack is a good dude. I meant Chase Crawford. Sorry.
And had the best pizza we've had in a really long time. I know it's worth going back to New York just for that reason. Okay, Disney Plus, October 16th. Clouds. I don't know what Clouds is. Is it a new Pixar animated?
No, it's something with Neve Campbell.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Oh, well, no, I don't think I can say that. I'll tell you guys something after the show. American Utopia, Spike Lee's new film that's coming to HBO Max. It is a concert documentary, we believe, about
make it David Byrne.
David Byrne. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. And it's coming to HBO Max on October 17th. No one's got a chance to see it, though, correct?
Yeah,
right?
I'll give the descriptor real quick. It's on HBO Max. IMDb says Spike Lee documents the former Talking Heads frontman's brilliant, timely 2019 Broadway show based on the recent album and tour of the same name. So,
that's cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
I'm fascinated by Spike's interest in it. Like, I don't really know much about the Talking Heads. And I just feel like it's such an interesting... I'm interested in seeing because I want to know what he... And David Byrne wrote it. Yeah, it looks cool.
I chalk up the Talking Heads as one of those bands that people love and I just don't get.
I don't know much about Talking Heads.
I just don't get them. I don't get them. And the Pretenders is another band that everybody like raves about the Pretenders, and I just like no, I don't understand it. And so I'll check this movie out and see if it's engaging. But it's cool that it's a Broadway show and Spike filmed it. I wonder how he filmed it.
Does Spike get director nomination this year for Five Bloods?
Yeah, right now, yes. Right now, yes. I think so.
I think
if they
to
didn't
your point,
extend the eligibility 2 months, I'd say almost certainly.
Yeah,
it was a dumb move. I'm going to keep complaining.
As everything keeps moving backwards.
No. But now, like, it feels like we're starting to honestly start seeing Oscar stuff. Like Sean, I know seeing his One Night in Miami. I think that's a big buzzed one right now. Nomad.
Regina King could obviously get in for director.
Guys, what if it's Fincher's year?
Oh,
what if it's Fincher's year?
See, now amazing. Here's why Fincher has the upper hand. Hollywood loves movies about movies. Hollywood loves Citizen Kane.
People feel like he's due, and they feel that they should have. I feel like there's this attitude of we should have given it to him for Social Network.
Plus, Oldman is like Oscar gold. Gary Oldman is like Gary Oldman. You just automatically assume. Because he won his first Oscar for
he's been nominated twice. He got nominated for Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and then won for. God, Mank is going to be. Do you guys know? And
what if it's bad? What if it's bad?
Has he made a bad movie that was his fault? No.
I'm even going to say, because I know you put the was his fault as stipulation, I'm assuming, for Alien 3. I don't think Alien 3 is bad.
I'm with you, Jake.
I think there's a kernel in there that is a testament to, like, if they just... I mean, could you imagine a world where we had a true David Fincher Alien movie? Like, you could see where it got messed with. And I understand why a lot of people got ticked off because of the beginning, because it kills off Newt.
Jake, I'm with you. I don't mind Alien 3.
Yeah. Do you guys know the story behind Rosebud and why Rosebud is named Rosebud in Citizen Kane?
No, I don't think so.
I feel like I have read this.
It's an amazing story, and I hope to God it's in Mank.
Can you tell it or no?
Can I? It's sexually graphic, and I tell it again.
Then I have heard it. Yes, I have heard it, and I would advise you not to tell it.
It's the best story. It's the best. It's like 1940s trolling.
Yes, is that really? Is it real? Is it real?
I looked it up to see if it was real, and I found it on multiple.
Oh, there you go. Now we're sending everybody to Google after you're done with the show.
Stupid question. Right. Who's playing Orson Welles in Mank?
Not an actor whose name I recognized.
Because he's only 26 when he made that movie.
Tom something or other.
Must be some young kid.
Not someone that we know. But that's going to be a really good
big role. That's a huge.
Did you guys ever see? And I feel like people kind of. It's I was like his director's name. There's a movie called Me and Orson Welles.
Oh, yeah.
I really enjoyed that movie.
It's
Zac
Efron.
Efron.
Didn't see it.
And it's from the director Linklater. It's a Linklater movie.
Is it?
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
and it's about Orson Welles when he was directing a Broadway production of Julius Caesar.
What?
It's really good.
Random. Yes, Gabe.
Orson Welles is being played by an actor called Tom Burke.
Thank you.
He was in Only God Forgives, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Does he look like him?
Maybe he doesn't even have that big of a part in the movie. Who knows?
I don't know how that's possible because Orson Welles directed and stars in it. It's like in Citizen Kane. By the way, I want to give credit to that movie real fast for the makeup. That's some of the most incredible makeup I've ever seen in a film, and that's 1941, whatever year that was.
Yeah,
insane.
Right. Let's get to a movie that is opening on October 16th that we want to rave about for a little while. When you talk about things that are potentially going to be in the Oscar race, I think Trial of the Chicago 7, if Netflix plays its cards right, has a chance to be in a lot of major categories. Although I wonder if Sorkin has a chance to break in, because, to comment briefly, well, we'll get into this conversation. I think some of its stronger points would be its screenplay and a few of the performances.
Yeah.
Trial of Chicago 7 is Aaron Sorkin returning to the field of courtroom drama. Obviously something that he dominated in what I consider to be one of my favorite films of all time, A Few Good Men. A Few Good Men has, it's remembered a lot for its courtroom scene, but the courtroom is really the last 30 minutes. There's a lot of film leading up to that prior to, which has to be laid out before you get to that point, or it doesn't make any sense. Yes.
Is Rob Reiner an underrated director?
Oh, yes.
Well,
yes.
Here's why I say that.
He's directed some of the most iconic classic films of all time, and
Few
no one
Good
ever
Men.
brings him up.
I agree. Few Good Men. When
Spinal
Harry
Tap.
Met Sally. Spinal
Stand
Tap.
by Me.
Stand by Me. Wait, there was another.
Princess Bride.
Made a slew of
Misery.
great films, and then made a slew of awful
American
films.
President was good too.
Misery.
No, he's terrific.
But
Well,
Reiner's never listed in like great director lists. He's made phenomenal films.
He's
Did
made.
you say Misery? He made Misery?
Yeah, Misery.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he has. I know. But then I think he went down a slew of like horrible films. But anyway, we're not talking about Ryan. We're talking about Aaron Sorkin, for God's sakes. This is a political film, a historical film. It's not one of those films. So it's about the riots that took place outside the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, and the reasons why different protesters were brought to the city to be outside of the convention center, which everything eventually went south. There were riots and protests and confrontations with the police. And then the bulk of this movie is the trial against the Chicago 7, which is made up of people from different groups that were, again, part of the protest, and whether or not they incited violence against the police. So you can tell just in that description a lot of the parallels that you could make to things that are going on today in our own headlines. It plays off of, I thought, a really razor sharp Aaron Sorkin screenplay. And Jake, you got to ask him this question. He's directing essentially a courtroom drama because he didn't get to direct the courtroom scenes for A Few Good Men. And to me, it's still currently the best thing that I've seen so far this year. I just thought it was so engaging. And it could have been, it set itself up to be as preachy and as soapboxy as possible. And it's just not. I thought it was so, like, entertaining is going to sound like a really strange word to use for it, but it moves so fast and the performances are so good and the script is so solid. And there's so many amazing people in supporting roles so that you get like Mark Rylance as the attorney who's defending the Chicago 7 and he just steals scenes that he's in. And Frank Langella as the judge, who's phenomenal as someone who just wants no interest in giving any leeway. And Yahya Abdul-Mateen is fantastic as somebody who's lumped in with the Chicago 7 and doesn't feel like he belongs there. And in fact, it was the Chicago 8 for a long time until they became Chicago 7. I loved it. I thought it was phenomenal. And where are you guys at with it? I gave it 5 stars in the review that we put up on ZombieMovieBlend.
I'll jump in, Sean, just because I think I'm closer to you than I am with Kevin. Also loved it. If you asked me to do a top 10 right now, there's a good chance I would go ahead and call this my number 1 so far this year. Thought it was a razor sharp Sorkin script, but also like allowed to breathe. It didn't necessarily have and or need that rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat, that kind of percussion that often accompanies the speed in which Sorkin writes. The same intelligence and the same sharpness, but just slowed down a little bit.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was much more confident and mature filmmaking than Molly's Game, which really Molly's Game was a movie I really wish he'd let someone else direct. I thought this was incredibly well done. And you talk about the ensemble of a performance. I mean, this is the kind of movie that the SAG Awards are made for. I mean, like there's not a major actor in this movie that you could say that person gives the best performance, and I would argue against you. If you came to me and said Sacha Baron Cohen gives the best performance, or Eddie Redmayne, or Frank Langella, or Abdul, I'd go, sure, okay. Like and there's even like a great A-list cameo who I don't want to ruin, who is fantastic in the movie when he shows. I didn't even know he was in the movie when he shows up. And so I absolutely love this movie, and was really, and obviously like a little bit biased because everything that happened like 18 feet from where I'm sitting at this moment. But no, I was very, very, very happy with it.
But Kevin, I don't know if you're going to start here, but Kevin brought up a part about the movie that even though I gave it 5 stars, I can't disagree with. Do you know what I'm going to say, or do you want to just say it?
No, well, just knowing you and knowing our conversations, you're going to say that it would have been different if it was directed by somebody else.
And mainly because he's worked with some of the greatest directors of our time. Like, he obviously is going to turn over an amazing screenplay. But in the past, we've seen people like Danny Boyle, David Fincher, Rob Reiner, as you mentioned, take a crack at his scripts, and they are phenomenal. And I think he's still developing as a filmmaker. But the minute you said that, Kevin, I was like, God, you're right. You're right.
It's one of those weird things where I truly feel like this is a great example of a script being better than the overall film. I think that there are lines of dialogue in this screenplay that I think will stay with me forever. There's a line about anything, you could do anything to anything by taking it out of context. Like, those are lines that I'm just going to always cycle through my mind because they're so powerful. And the way this film opens, in my opinion, very strongly. I love the way the dialogue is passed off between each character. And I think it's so smart how it's done. I remember I was interviewing Aaron Sorkin for this, and he said that he had the actors finish the whole lines, even though he cuts them off. I thought it was kind of a cool thing because you think about a screenwriter, when you write a script, you have dialogue that you've written out, and then either a Fincher or somebody comes in and directs it for you. So you lose a little control over your work, but when Sorkin writes something, a director is obviously going to try and keep it as Sorkin-like as possible. But when you're Aaron Sorkin and you write something cool like that and you can direct it yourself, it's cool to be able to chop it up. He was editing on the day in his mind. For people who aren't aware of what I'm saying, in the beginning of the film, we're introduced to the main characters, and each character basically hands off dialogue to the next. And it's very cool. It moves. There's walk and talk element in there with Yahya Abdul-Mateen.
It's like a relay race.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Like handing off the baton.
It's very quickly introducing you to all the people too. You got to hold on tight and figure out who. Because the cast is enormous.
It's intimidating at first.
Yeah. And I think that's the whole point, right? I think Sorkin is setting you up for urgency at the beginning of that film. It's an urgent movie. It's urgent about what they're trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish. Sorkin, in talking to him for this, I truly got a really unique understanding of how much this meant to him. I mean, for him as a filmmaker to be outside shooting those protest sequences, and he said extras were jumping in, and actually people were just jumping off the side of the street to be part of the chant. That was, the chant that we hear in the film, which is the whole world is watching.
The whole world is watching. Yeah.
People were walking by while they were filming it and jumping in to do the chant with them. Like the energy of this film is so interesting to me. I love a courtroom drama. I don't feel the director's voice, Sorkin's voice, flowed through the whole film for me. I think as a writer, his voice is there in a weird way, but from a shot choice and a directing standpoint, I just found myself at times not being able to see past the actors who are playing the parts. I think Redmayne, his American accent is brilliant. That's one of the most insane American accents. I mean, I didn't even recognize his voice. Like, it was incredible. I think that there's actors in this film that deliver great lines, great dialogue. I just didn't find myself... I walked away from it thinking that was good, but I did not find it to be it didn't hit me as hard as I wanted it to. And I felt like, as relevant as it is, like The Five Bloods is relevant.
It's so relevant. Not to cut you off, Kev, but I was dumbfounded at how, when we were watching riots play out this past summer, and then to watch it so quickly after, you'd think that they jumped into the streets and filmed it 2 months ago.
Well, there were protests at Grand Park where they filmed the protest that took place in 1968.
But Sean, remember your Spike Lee interview when you asked Spike Lee if he went out and filmed those shots?
Yeah. I mean,
that's a great question.
The Five Bloods and the relevancy of these movies is something you can't not look past. I mean, you can't not see it. I think
it's sad because it just means it's cyclical. We're doomed to repeat all these things that we're facing.
I think for me, Trial of the Chicago 7 is a very good movie. I don't think it's a great film. I think it's very, very beautifully written. I think it's an incredible script that I would love to have seen Fincher or Spielberg take on. I do think performance-wise, listen, I'm a fan of Sacha Baron Cohen outside of all the Borat and Bruno stuff. I mean, I think he's
so talented.
He was brilliant in Hugo. He was brilliant in Sleepy Hollow. His performance in Sleepy Hollow is incredible. Yeah, and lame. Yeah,
wait, Sacha Baron Cohen's in Sleepy Hollow?
Yeah. Wait, no, I'm Sweeney Todd. I'm thinking of Sweeney Todd.
Oh, Sweeney Todd.
My apologies. Yeah. Sweeney Todd, he plays the Pirelli's Miracle Elixir. Yeah, sorry, I was getting the two confused. But either way, I think he's a good actor. I just didn't find Chicago 7 to be like mind-blowingly great.
All right, we all can check it out for yourselves when it hits Netflix on October 16th.
Great score, though. Yeah.
Let's get to the blend game where we're playing hashtag ZombieMovieBlend, and we'll let our resident horror expert go first. Jake, take it away.
My choice, I feel like, is a little cliche, and it wouldn't surprise me if one of you guys picked the same one. But I'm going to 28 Days Later. This idea of and Walking Dead ended up doing it years later, and I feel like kind of gets more credit for doing it. But we forget that Danny Boyle did it first. This idea of waking up in the aftermath of a zombie insurrection. And this idea of walking around and going like, wait, what happened? Mm-hmm. You know, we're so used to sort of, kind of seeing, the virus breakout or the animal bite somebody or we're kind of, but the fact that, we're literally, no pun intended, skipping 28 days after and all of that stuff that most zombie movies are about, we're skipping.
What was the hook? Was he in a coma?
He was in a coma.
Okay, I forgot that.
And he wakes up in a hospital and is walking that great shot where he's walking over the bridge and you can see Big Ben behind and, there's trash is all over the place. And I feel like at that point, then we really started seeing in the 2000s a lot of different movies with people running around and like, desolate, Will Smith in Times Square and Tom Cruise in Times Square, all these, we really started seeing that. But I feel like that's one of the first ones where people were really like, what the hell? And, it was really one of the first big movies that had, these zombies like really at just a virally fast pace, like these really fast zombies. I just love the idea. And it also like, it's also like emotional, that scene where Brendan Gleeson very quickly has to say goodbye to his daughter because he had the blood drip into his eyes.
Oh, yeah.
And he knows that he has just moments where he basically says, look, like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm so sorry. And like, just like, so it's a terrifying movie. It's a great, unique, fresh angle to a movie that we've been seeing since, for decades by this point. And also just gritty enough, early enough in Danny Boyle's career where it's not super polished. I kind of felt like 28 Weeks Later was just a little too polished and blockbustery. And so I don't know. I went a lot of different directions within the zombie genre, it's subgenre, and but I couldn't get past anything as good as 28 Days Later.
Kev, did you pick that also?
No, it was something else. Did you go with that?
I did not. No, so go ahead. What's yours?
Do you want to go next?
I'll go next.
Go next.
I don't really care for zombie movies. It's not my favorite genre. Even the really great examples of it, I just don't find all that interesting. When I'm seeking out certain horror movies, I wouldn't necessarily gravitate toward a zombie movie. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just that the threat of them feels repetitive, that it's hard to make them unique and different. And like the biggest argument comes down to like fast zombies or slow zombies, but they're all just like mindless creatures that want to, chew your flesh or do whatever they want to do. So
it sounds like a premium episode, by the way.
So I like it. You may get that topic in a little bit. I like Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. I almost chose that. I ended up wanting to gear more towards the comedies, and instead of picking Shaun of the Dead, I picked a movie called Night of the Creeps. Have you guys seen Night of the Creeps before?
I have not.
Night of the Creeps rules. It's from 1987, I want to say, and it's very similar to the type of movie you've seen before, where a blob-esque type creature lands on our planet, breaks off into tiny little insect creatures. They look like slugs, and they move very quickly along the floor. And they go up into your mouth. They jump into your mouth and they infect your brain, and they immediately turn you into a zombie. And there's a police officer on a 1950s, it's like shot black and white, he's at Lover's Lane, and he's trying to break up the couples that are all together, and turns out some of the couples are zombified, right? Like they got infected by these little aliens and they turned into zombies. But the only way that you kill a person who's zombified in Night of the Creeps, you have to do a combination of two things. One, you have to shoot them in the head and blow their head wide open, but then you immediately have to blowtorch the slugs that are inside the person's head, because if not, when you blow the person's head open, the slugs go everywhere and then they infect more people. So it's like a comedy and like a romantic comedy sort of thing, because there's a college that's going on that is going through like the sorority beats of the 1980s, where the cool kids are trying to ask out the sorority girls, and there's a nerd kid who thinks he has a date sort of thing, and he ends up teaming up with the police officer, and they have to take down all of the creeps on the night of the homecoming dance. And there's just so many great jokes packed into it. Like there's a great see, I don't want to give too much of it away, but there's a really great sequence where like a bus filled with meathead fraternity guys is on their way to go pick up the women for the date, for the homecoming, and they all get infected. And I don't want to tell you how, but it's a really funny way that they all get infected. And it's this great character who plays the grizzled police officer, he was the young officer in the beginning of the movie, and he ends up becoming the grizzled police officer later on, and he's got to come back together to fight the creeps. It made me appreciate zombies and what you could do with zombies in that instance, because it makes a lot of jokes about how slow they move and why can't we fight them, because it just should be much easier. So if you haven't seen it, Night of the Creeps is really, really funny. It's got some really great 80s humor in it, and it builds to a tremendous face-off between zombified fraternity guys and sorority guys and this nerdy person with a flamethrower on his back. You should definitely check it out. It's really, really
sounds awesome.
Dude, you saw what a sell, man. I'm all in.
Yeah, I loved it. It's really great. So that's my pick. Kev?
I went with Zombieland only because I just think
Great
that
choice.
I love Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick. I think they're brilliant writers. I'm also a gigantic Metallica fan, so if you have 1,000 frame per second Phantom camera filming a slow motion,
that's pretty great. Those credits are great.
I mean, the credits at the beginning of that film, they use this Phantom camera. They're going 1,000 frames a second, and you have For Whom the Bell Tolls by Metallica blasting during these awesome credits, and like the way they use the words on the screen and the double tap language. And for me, this was a great movie because I also loved the love story in it. I also loved Eisenberg and Emma Stone's love story mixed in with the chaos of how ridiculous this film was. At the end of the day, this movie is kind of spoofing or joking about zombie things, but it's also taking itself just serious enough where I'm entertained, but also on the edge of my seat, also grossed out. I mean, the whole zombie kill of the week when they drop a piano on a zombie was just, it was just insane. I mean, those, and to me, I try to think of moments in a movie where you just become so floored as an audience member, and I think that nothing made me happier in a long time than seeing Bill Murray show up in that film.
God, such a great cameo.
And I just think, and here's what's great about that cameo. Every time I watch it, I've seen Zombieland at least 10 or 15 times. I pray that Eisenberg won't shoot him. Like every single time, I'm just like, dude, I hope maybe this time he'll realize that Bill Murray's just joking. Remember, Bill Murray walks in, he's joking like he's a zombie, and then Eisenberg shoots him, and it's like this such a sad scene. But I'm glad they did it that way because it made it so emotional, but also fun. I mean, the fact that they had Ghostbusters costumes on, they were doing "Don't Cross the Stream" bits, and I think it was just funny. Well, don't they make a joke about another actor who's a zombie? And like Bill Murray's like, I saw him last week. He's doing great. Eddie Van Halen? Don't they say Eddie Van Halen?
Oh,
Isn't
God,
Eddie
that'd
Van
be
Halen?
really sad. Is it really?
I'm almost certain that
remember.
there's a bit in the film. Someone double check it, but I'm almost certain that Bill Murray mentions seeing Eddie Van Halen at like somewhere else in the world of Zombieland at some point.
That's weird.
So, someone double check that, which is very it is in there.
I didn't hate
Very
Double
random.
Tap. I thought Double Tap was pretty good. I don't
thought
know if we needed it, but it was pretty good.
Double Tap was unnecessary because like that's what made Zombieland so special, was because it was so unique and so much fun. And I think Woody Harrelson, one of his best performances. I love Woody Harrelson in Zombieland. I just really think that they have so much fun with the clever nature of that story. They mess with the concept. They have fun with it. It's new enough. It's fresh enough. And then if you add heavy metal music and slow motion, I'm in. I mean, I just love those movies.
I love movies where you can. I feel the same way about the Ocean's movies, where you can just tell that the cast is genuinely having a good time and getting along and enjoying. Like, and I feel like you can absolutely tell that the leads in Zombieland are just having that. You can tell they all really like each other, and you can tell that they all really. You know, it's something that I wish this show had.
Also, you throw in a theme park at the end. I love theme parks.
Yeah,
I love theme park.
I love theme parks too.
I love a theme park in a horror movie. I don't know why, but it's fun. Like that one piece that's like going down like this. That's like swooping up the zombies, and then they go up. What's that thing that shoots them up and they come down? And the zombies are like crawling up the whatever it was. But I thought they were so. They use space really well to have fun. And then the whole Twinkie bit. The Twinkie bit is classic. Him trying to just get a Twinkie at the end. I mean, it was like, I don't know. I just love that movie. Love Zombieland.
Audience picks. Benjamin Price, Jess, Brian Stever, and many, many more picked a film that I haven't yet seen, but I've heard really great things about, Train to Busan.
Dude, I was getting ready to ask you this question. I got so many tweets about this. It's a 2016 Korean film.
It's on Netflix, I think.
It's supposed to be phenomenal.
I looked it up. I want to see this movie. Everyone is saying it's phenomenal.
We should all watch it.
And I know that they did a sequel to it recently, and it wasn't as good.
It wasn't good.
Apparently, but that Train to Busan is supposed to be amazing. Marcus Brown and No went with Dawn of the Dead, 2004, the Zack Snyder version. Janet Metzger and many others went with Night of the Living Dead, obviously going with the classic. Real James, Dante, and many more went with Shaun of the Dead.
I love Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's really funny. And Indy Christina said Resident Evil. So thank you very much for participating.
I like
this
the
week.
first Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Where they're underground in the hive, the first one?
I like that one too. And that has one of the coolest deaths ever. Remember like remember that big like laser thing that comes at that guy and slices him into
that was fun.
Into sections.
Yes.
Hot take by the way. Snyder's Dawn of the Dead better than Romero's.
Yeah, I think that's true, actually. Yeah. Snyder's Dawn of the Dead is phenomenal.
Is that a hot take or is that...
I think a lot of people feel that way.
All right.
Yeah.
Really?
It's lukewarm at this point. I think some people prefer the original, but I think a lot of people know that.
And also, I think it's one of those things where like Romero rightfully gets credit for like kind
consumerism.
Of what we think of the zombie movies these days. But by no means is he like the end all be all in terms of quality.
Yeah. I went back and rewatched the opening 7 or 8 minutes of Snyder's just to see if I was going to pick it, and it's it's so phenomenal.
Movie's amazing.
Great. I know. You forget how good that was. Like that was another really good one that plunged you into like, oh my god, we're at the zombies already.
We're there.
Oh my god, it's starting. Here we go. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Next week's. I was going to say zombie game. Next week's blend game is hashtag SciFiHorrorBlend. So I have a feeling we're going to have a lot of debate over what counts there. If you're going to be hanging out in the Alien franchise or the Terminator franchise. Are Terminator films horror films?
One of them might be.
One of them might be. So,
did you see Salvation?
Come up with your pick for Sci-Fi Horror Blend and share it with us on social media using the hashtag Sci-Fi Horror. This week's review. Oh, I'm sorry. You can also email us at realblend@cinemablend.com, as I tell you guys every single week. And that is where Randy Buss sent his review this week. And he writes, I have been listening to Real Blend podcasts from the beginning when it was first called Awards Blend. Award season is my favorite time of the year for the show because I love hearing people's top 10 lists and why they picked the movies that they did. Outside of awards season, it's still a good show to get the latest news on what's coming to theaters and other major news in the industry. I'm always interested in hearing the boys' reviews of upcoming movies they have seen before the rest of us get a chance to, as long as they keep it spoiler-free before it comes out in theaters. The discussion on older movies have led me to watch many of them that I never saw, with some good results and some not good results. Check out Night of the Creeps, Randy Buss. You will love that one. In summary, I just wanted to say my thanks to everyone involved with the show. The chemistry between Sean, Jake, and Kevin is great, and you can see they have a special friendship, which is so nice to see in this day and age. The passion that they show towards the movie industry is outstanding, especially Kevin. Kevin has to be the Dick Vitale of movie podcasts. He gets so excited talking about his love for movies. A special shout out to producer Gabe for putting together the podcast. A lot of times people behind the scenes get overlooked, but not by this listener. Great job, Gabe. Great job, Gabe.
Nice. It's funny. I actually feel like we give him too much credit.
Yeah, I would say.
Well, that's because I'm contractually you're obligated. So.
Probably too. I want to remind everybody that you can go and submit reviews for us on the Apple iTunes podcast. You can send it to us at realblend@cinemablend.com. We just want to continue to grow out the Real Blend community. Oh, to really quickly pitch too, because we haven't in a while, the Facebook community. There's a Facebook page for Real Blend. They have a Reddit subreddit subthread thingamabob that we can do.
Subreddit's the word you're looking for.
Thank you very much. That you can join if you want to, where they're constantly discussing things about the show. And I feel like there's another one, but I'm blanking on what it is. Anyway, the premium episodes. You guys want to sign up for premium episodes that we are releasing every Monday. It is at bit.ly/realblend premium. This week is going to be a new game that Gabe is going to try to get us to do. It's called This or That. And this one's going to be a horror edition.
Do you have like a theme song?
We kind of don't. I'm sure you will come up with one.
I was gonna say, Jake, I think you're gonna sing it for us at the beginning.
You can deal with this. You can deal with that.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I wish we could afford that.
And we get sued.
What song is that? What is that?
That is
song?
That's the song where Christopher Walken's dancing through the hotel.
No. You're thinking of something different. You're thinking of Tribe Called Quest, aren't you?
Yeah, I think so.
Black Sheep. The choice is yours.
Oh, it's Black Sheep. Okay.
Yeah. Isn't that the song where Christopher Walken's dancing through the...
No, he's dancing through the hotel in the not Moby.
Wait, which Christopher Walken movie?
The Christopher Walken video.
Music video.
It's a video.
I think that's
Is it Moby?
Oh, Weapon of Choice.
By who?
By Fatboy Slim.
It's Fatboy Slim. Aren't they basically the same? Fatboy Slim and Moby. Has anyone seen them in the same place? Has anyone seen both of them with Pitbull?
That music video is directed by Spike Jonze.
Yes, it was. Yes. All right. So anyway, we'll be back next week. In the meantime, follow us on social at Jake's Takes, at Kevin McCarthy TV, at Sean_O'Connell, and at Real Blend. Hopefully we had Aaron Sorkin this week. And we'll be back with a new episode soon. And so until then,
Hubie Halloween.